y'all, I really think I'm really starting to get my groove with using this loop yarn. So today I'm going to show you how I make another little project with it. This is really fun. So if you want to learn how to make this really neat jumbo pumpkin, stay tuned. Okay guys, look at this really cute pumpkin. This thing is so fun and so easy to create. I made it in the size, it's like 30 inches wide around, and like 12 inches tall. So it looks almost like an authentic pumpkin. Super cute. Really quickly before I get started, if you're not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing that. If you liked the video or you found it useful in any way, please consider sharing it, liking, or commenting on the video. It really helps to push the video along on YouTube. So thank you so much. Let's get started. So I used the BERNAT ALIZE blanket yarn. This is the easy yarn. You don't need any tools except for your hands. And this is the large skein. The colorway is orange leaf and it's perfect for this fall pumpkin. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that you want to do is you're going to need to separate out at least 5 loops to make your tail. Once I've determined those 5 loops, I went ahead and put a stitch marker right there so that I know I'm not going to include that in my project, okay? Once you have those 5 loops counted out, go ahead and count over 35 more loops. The 35 loops is what we're going to use to create our pumpkin swatch, what we're going to use to make our pumpkin. Once you have that counted out, use another stitch marker just to indicate that that's where you're going to end your row, okay? Then once you have that done and you have all your little loops facing up, we're going to start by doing the second row, okay? So really quickly, this row is always going to be a little more complicated, but it's not hard. Just trust the process here. You're going to feed the top row into the bottom row, and I'll show you this a few times. It's a lot easier to watch than it is for me to explain, okay? So you're going to basically feed the bottom row into the top row, and then you're going to give it a pull so that it all kind of lays together. Okay, so here you are. I'll show you again. See, just like that. And again, at the very beginning, it always looks a little bit more jumbled. Just trust the process for real. And always just kind of give the loops a little tug upwards. That allows it to kind of lay flat, and then you can really get the project moving in the right direction. This does not take a very long time to complete, guys, because again, you're not using any tools, you're just using your hands. Okay. And I would say the trickiest part to this is just making sure you line up your loops. You want to make sure that the loop that is directly above the bottom loop, that they go together. So you're basically making pairs, but you want to make sure that they stay even. Otherwise, you have to kind of do some correcting to make it work. But you want all of your loops to line up. The top loops need to go with the bottom loops that are directly below it. Okay. And I'll stay on camera just showing you. I won't keep talking your ear off. Just keep following the screen, and then you'll pause once you get to the stitch marker on the other side. So just keep on working until you get to row 13. Okay guys, and sometimes as you're working along, you will notice that the loops become twisted just like that. That is not a design flaw in this project. You don't have to correct it. If you wanted to, you would just take the loop apart, make sure that it's flat, and then feed it back into the top loop. But honestly, I like the little twist, and you'll see in my finish that I did a lot of twisting just because I wanted to create like a ridge. But you don't have to worry about doing that. This is a very easy beginner friendly project. So if you don't want to do any twisting or anything, don't do that. Just keep working it flat, okay? So I hope that didn't confuse anything. So at this point, we have completed all 13 rows. What you want to make sure you do is that the tail, the yarn that's connected to the skein, it needs to be on the right hand side. So as you can see here, I started doing the ending and my tail was still on the left. So I had to back it up, do it again, but you want to make sure that you leave a tail. The tail end needs to be on your right hand side because that's how we're going to finish off the project, okay? So all we're doing here is we're basically taking the loop on the right and we're feeding it through the root loop on the left, okay? This is how you're going to finish off your loop project so that it doesn't come unraveled, okay? So continue doing that, feeding the right loop into the left loop, as you can see here on the screen, until you get to the very end. So go ahead and leave yourself a little tail here. I counted off, I think I did 11 loops, and just cut it, and then you're going to pull that tail through the last loop standing, okay, and give it a little tug so that it stays nice and secure. That's that, okay? So at this point, remember the tail we created at the very beginning, the 5 loops, we're going to cut them. So there is a little string, as you can see here on the screen, that I'm going to cut. Just be careful that you're not cutting the yarn. You just want to cut that little string. That's going to loosen that pre-made loop so that we have just a straight tail. Be sure to snip the loops on both tails, okay? Okay, so this leaves me a nice long tail, which we're going to use to cinch up the top portion of our pumpkin. I'm going to go ahead and flip this so that now I'm working along the top. Just makes it easier for me and to show you what I'm doing. Take that tail there that we left, and we're going to start weaving that in between the stitches, but in between the loops, okay? So just kind of going in and then out so that we're able to create a cinch. So follow along here with me on the screen. You're just weaving the tail in and out. Okay, so you do that all the way until you get to the end. See there? And this is the most satisfying part. You're just gonna pull it all together. Do you see how it draws together? And at this point, you're just shaping everything together so that everything comes together and it looks like a little cylinder, I guess. Okay, we've completely cinched up that top portion, and we're going to take that same tail and we're now going to sew down the sides. So if you watch my hat video, this is very similar to what we did in that video. Okay, we're just literally grabbing a loop from one side and a loop from the other side, and we're using that string, that loose tail, to sew it, hand sew it together. See there? So just pinch it, grabbing a loop from each side. See what I'm doing there? And you're going to just stick that tail right through the loop. Loops, actually, 2 loops. Do that all the way down until you get to the bottom. Okay. Now keep in mind, you don't want to pull this string. This is where the tips come into play. You don't want to pull the string too taut. You don't want to pull it too tight because it's still attached to the top portion of your pumpkin, and you don't want the pumpkin to be cinched up to the place where it gathers too much, okay? So loosely pull it through, making sure that it is secure, but you want to get it all the way down to the bottom, okay? Now, we still have that tail that we left when we finished off our project, because remember, I flipped everything. So we still have that tail. you're going to snip the loops like we did before, creating another tail. Okay, so don't get confused here. Once you finish going down the side of the the pumpkin, that original tail, you're gonna just stuff it inside the pumpkin. Don't worry about it anymore. The new tail that we just created with the by snipping the loops, we're gonna weave that along the bottom the same way we did at the top. Okay, I'm going to put a stitch marker here at the end so you can kind of see what I'm doing, but literally I'm just going in and out the same way that I did at the top of the pumpkin. So just continue to weave the yarn through the loops. Okay. Once you've done that, you're going to be able to cinch the bottom of the pumpkin the same way that we cinched the top. You don't want to cinch it all the way though, guys, because we still have to stuff it, okay? So use anything you want. I use some fiber fill. You also can use, I'll show you in a second. But before we get that far, take that tail that we just used to cinch up the bottom and stick it through the pumpkin to the opposite side, leaving just a little bit. I actually used a clip to make sure that I didn't accidentally pull it back through, but just leave a little bit of that tail out because you're gonna need to use that tail to cinch it close, okay? So as you can see here, you can see the white fiber, the white cotton fill, okay? Two ways to solve that. Now, if you just want to use this yarn and don't want to spend any more money on anything extra, don't have stuff laying around, I'll show you what to do. But if you can find this little felt that you used to use back in school, it's like 20 something cents at the local craft store, I put that in to the side of the pumpkin. So basically I stuffed the pumpkin with the white cotton fiber fill, and then I just used that felt and kind of put it along the outer portion, if that makes any sense at all. Essentially, you're just trying to hide that white. So see what I'm doing here? I just stuffed it down and I kind of worked it around some, and that helped disguise that white color. Okay. Another thing that you're going to do, take the extra yarn and just stuff it in there. That's another way of saving money, or not getting any additional supplies, okay? If you want to make another smaller pumpkin, then don't do this. But I used the extra in my pumpkin because I wasn't going to make another pumpkin. Okay, these little sticks I found in my yard. Use whatever you want to make the stem. I wanted something inexpensive. I already had purchased the yarn. I went and got some, those sticks measured about 8 inches. Stuck it right down there in that pumpkin. Okay? Now, remember that tail I told you about? The piece that you left? Go ahead and now pull it as tight as you can around the stick. That's going to seal everything together. Really interesting enough, when I was creating the pumpkin, the part that I sewed together earlier created a bigger divide. It's weird. I'll show it to you in a second. So I used that tail to cinch in that area. You can see it in a second. It just, for some reason, it kind of didn't gather the way I wanted it to gather, but it still worked out perfectly because what I did was I took the tail and I'm going to cinch up the side. So you see that big divot? It looks like, well, we're going to fix it. So see there how I did that? I'm just taking the same safety clip that I used earlier and I'm just sewing that together. That's my tip. So yours may not do that. Mine did it. I don't know why, but it's all good. So anyway, I'm going to sew down the side again, just making sure that it looks still a little bit more, you know, pulled together. And then I'm going to tuck the tail into the bottom of the pumpkin. Guys, that's it, really. You're going to shape this thing up the way you want it to look. Keep in mind that pumpkins are all different. So, you know, shape it up as you see fit. Make sure the bottom is nice and secure. And really, guys, that's that. I took some faux leaves that I had and I stuck them to the top of the pumpkin. And this right here is my final project. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. See you next time. Bye.